The Strait of Hormuz saw minimal traffic on April 10th, according to ship tracking data from MarineTraffic, despite a ceasefire in the U.S. Israeli war on Iran. The fragile two-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran encountered new tensions on Friday, right before negotiations in Pakistan. Washington accused Tehran of breaching commitments in the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran claimed Israel's strikes in Lebanon to violate the truce. There was no sign Iran was lifting its near-total blockade of the strait, which has caused the worst-ever disruption to global energy supplies. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday, April 9th, Iran should not charge fees to tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz. They better not be, and if they are, they better stop now, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Trump later added that Iran was doing a very poor job of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have, Trump said in a post on Truth Social.
What role does the president see for the U.S. in monitoring or helping with the Strait of Hormuz going forward?
I think the president commented on that this morning. We're going to continue to monitor it very, very closely. We will be helpful in any way that we can, but we fully expect Iran to do this, and the president has made that quite clear as well. It's, again, as his statement said last night, this ceasefire is subject to the safe reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Again, this was just determined last night. We understand things take time, but that's the president's expectation, and he will hold everyone to it.
The president suggested in an interview this morning that he would support a joint U.S.-Iran venture to charge tolls for ships going through the strait. Does the president believe that the U.S. should earn revenue from the Strait of Hormuz going forward?
It's an idea the president has floated, as you know, and it's something that will continue to be discussed over the course of the next 2 weeks. But the immediate priority of the president is the reopening of the strait without any limitations, whether in the form of tolls or otherwise.
We've been working internationally, both for a swift resolution of the conflict and also for a plan for what comes after. Because we were not involved in the start of this conflict, but we will work together to support a sustainable end to it. So most important of all for us, that means the restoration of freedom of navigation, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and getting the global economy moving once more. Because the attacks on international shipping in the Gulf, the effective closure of the strait has been deeply damaging for the world, blocking fertilizer for Africa, liquid natural gas for Asia, and jet fuel for the world. The trading route for Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Oman, all hijacked by Iran so that they can hold the global economy hostage. But this is an international shipping route. It's a transit route for the high seas. No country can close those routes, and it goes against the fundamental principles of the law of the sea. And here in Britain, the importance of this runs deep in our history. Because we're an island nation, a maritime economy, 95% of our trade is carried by sea, 40% of our food is imported. And it was Victorian Britain that pioneered the freedom of the seas, the maritime law, made piracy a crime of universal jurisdiction. And today we know more than ever that freedom of navigation is the underpinning of global trade, and it matters for every sea, every ocean, every strait. Every country has a stake in this. Every industry is affected by it. So that is why last week I convened more than 40 nations from every continent across the globe, all adamant that freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz must be restored. It's why today I met with the International Maritime Organization to discuss what the first steps should be now the ceasefire is in place. And it's why we are supporting and promoting their practical proposals to start moving the ships that are stranded in the strait and the 20,000 stranded seafarers. It's a humanitarian as well as an economic first step. And then we need the full and unconditional reopening of the Strait as a central part, not just of the current ceasefire, but the long-term future for the region. Because the fundamental freedoms of the seas must not be unilaterally withdrawn or sold off to individual bidders, and nor can there be any place for tolls on an international waterway. Freedom of navigation means navigation must be free. And the international consensus that Britain helped build more than 100 years ago in support of maritime freedoms, we will champion again now. So there is so much more work to do to build a sustainable settlement which delivers security for the region. And let me be clear, it must include Lebanon. The escalation of airstrikes in Lebanon by Israel yesterday was deeply damaging. And in the humanitarian consequences of this conflict, with hundreds of thousands of people displaced, hundreds of people killed, but also for the security prospects for the region and for the people of Lebanon and the people of Israel too, we will not achieve a durable peace settlement in the Middle East if in Lebanon the crisis endures. Regional stability and security also requires that Iran must not pose a threat to international shipping anymore or to its neighbours. And we've long been clear, Iran cannot be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and we've got no illusion about the nature of the Iranian regime, as we saw earlier this year in its brutal repression of its own people and the threats projected through its proxies around the world, including Hezbollah. So an Iran that is contained is an Iran that can no longer hurt our interests, allies, or prosperity or people. So where threats remain, the goal must be to move from conflict to containment with coordinated international action and diplomacy to prevent rearmament supply chains. And we also won't forget that regional security requires progress on the Gaza ceasefire and the 20-point plan, an end to annexation threats and settler violence in the West Bank, and a realistic political horizon for the two-state solution that is the only way to ensure security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Events in the Middle East weigh heavily on us, and it might be tempting or even comforting to think that the Iran crisis is a once-in-a-generation shock. But this is the third time in 6 years that international events have sent economic tidal waves around the globe, hitting Britain's shores. The COVID pandemic, the invasion of Ukraine, and now the Iran conflict. Instability and volatility are becoming increasingly chronic, and turbulence is now the new normal. National security and economic prosperity increasingly intertwined. The new reality we face did not begin with the war in Iran, nor will it end with a reopened strait. And I think for too long, the UK clung to the prevailing security assumptions of the last 2 decades. Our country had planned for a post-Cold War peace dividend. Instead, we have an aggressive expansionist Russia that menaces our continent. Successive governments hoped that well-managed economic globalization would expand trade, reduce conflict, and a rising tide would lift all boats. Instead, we've seen instability, inequality, and rising protectionism threaten economic security. We've got rapid technological change, creating amazing new opportunities, but also new uncertainties and vulnerabilities, and undiversified supply chains exploited for economic coercion, and the interdependence that has helped make us prosperous being weaponized against us. We've seen in China's rise the most consequential economic transformation of the last century, and all of this amidst the US changing priorities and focus with far-reaching implications for European responsibility and for our own defense. So these assumptions about benign international security, about stable globalization, about predictable international partnerships may have been well-intentioned, but UK governments were too slow to adapt as the world changed.